Good evening, Warriors, and welcome into the 175th edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, Randy Isbell. With me, as always, Mr. Robert Hagan. Robert, somehow it's March Madness. Somehow we have brackets in front of us, and I feel like I just said Happy New Year to you yesterday. How's it going?
Same thing. I mean, we talked about it last week too. Where has the dates went as this past weekend? I finally had the entire weekend off. No work either direction. So the wife and I actually planned something, and then I got asked to work, and I felt bad because I turned you down of working and doing the LC basketball game there at LC, and so. But well needed rest. But I can't believe we're just a few days from opening day of baseball.
We are 9 hours away
9 hours, yeah, that's right.
from opening day of baseball, technically. A little over a week from everyone else getting underway. We will talk about those two games between the Dodgers and the Padres. We will preview the American League Central this week, and then next week it'll be the AL East, and then we'll give you all of our playoff and award predictions as well. Also on the show, Blake Snell finally found a home, but at this point, do we care? Did he leave a lot of money on the table by waiting until March 18th to do it? We'll talk about that. Joe Damon had a really good week. LC Warrior men's basketball are now moved on to the round of 16. The Warrior women unfortunately lost in a thriller contest that we will talk about in the second round of the women's tournament. What else we got? Aussie Rules football has officially begun. They had their full week, and my Hawks already suck. Bristol was a really interesting race, not mostly because of what happened on the track as far as the cars are concerned, but the tires. The tires were the story in that one. We'll get to that. And of course, we will break down our very uneducated predictions for the brackets, both on the men's side and the women's side. We got some other stuff to talk about as well. But let's get right into it. Real quick, if you have not watched any of the episodes of Bad Brackets, the 10th episode is now live. Just search Bad Brackets on YouTube this week in honor of March Madness. It is the funny NCAA Division One school nicknames. There's some wilder ones when you get to Division Two and Division Three. We stuck with the teams that had a chance to qualify for said bracket. Some of them made this bracket as well. We had a lot of fun just kind of poking fun at some of the weird nicknames that schools pick. The
Yeah,
GUI Ducks did not count because that was an AI, but it would have won. It would have straight up won. You got some
hands.
big news, though, over there in the world of Clarkston.
Yeah, lots of things going on in Clarkson. The Clarkson archery teams wrap things up over at State, which happened to be in the Tri-Cities area, and Clarkson come away with a lot of great things. Jordan Cassetto, one of the girls, ended up winning the state girls bullseye competition. So hats off to her. Also, the elementary schools just cleaned house too. Grantham finished first, Parkway second, Highland finished eighth, and Heights Elementary finished fourth. Middle school, Lincoln come away with a big win, number one in the state, and high school, Clarkson High School comes away with two. So well represented in the state level with the archeries. But then we go back to news that came out of Clarkson Bantam basketball from the girls' side. Another great invite. Alejandra Perez and Kendall Wallace both were invited to take and be participants in the 1A versus 2A state game. And unfortunately, Alejandra wasn't able to make it, but Kendall Wallace does make it over there. And to the shock of her and her family, she was announced as the 2A Washington Girls State Player of the Year. So congratulations to Kendall Wallace. Just add into those accolades, and guess what? she's not leaving the Valley. We get to see her as a Warrior here pretty soon.
Absolutely, join the women's Warrior team next year as a lot of that team is coming back. Obviously, they lost some big hitters with Callie Stevens and Maddie Holm, of course, but a really solid women's squad coming in next year, and we'll see what she is able to do joining that squad. Let's get to the national news. Let's talk about some Major League Baseball. As again, we're just hours away from the first pitch of the 2024 season, and the big news that came out yesterday, literally an hour before one of my other fantasy baseball drafts was taking place. But Blake Snell finally signs a contract, and when you look at the contract, I'm surprised Scott Boras is still his agent. First off, he signs with the San Francisco Giants, so congratulations to them for getting last year's Cy Young winner in the National League. It's just a 2-year contract for $62 million. It does have an opt-out after this year and some of the other small stuff in there because Snell rejected a qualifying offer from the Padres. That means the Giants lose about $500,000 in international money, and they also lose their third-round pick in 2024, but usually draft picks in baseball aren't as high valued as they are in, say, the National Football League or the NBA. So those are just smaller stuff that goes on with that contract. But just right off the bat, Snell finally with the home. We've talked about it for weeks, how the longer it's gone on, the more we're worried about him. Now that he's signed, we are about 9 days from opening day for the San Francisco Giants. How you feeling about this move?
Yeah, you and I talked about it. It just seems like a lot of money, and he left a lot of money on the table
Yeah.
from other teams, especially from the New York Yankees. But the big thing I'm curious about is what are they going to get out of him as far as how ready is he for he had to be out there throwing the ball around, but as far
Yeah.
as it, bullpen time, can we expect him to be at full level? I don't think so, especially seeing live bats and that. I don't think it'll be a big push, but is it enough that it'll help the San Francisco Giants get a little farther up to the level of where the Los Angeles Dodgers might be?
No.
I
That's
doubt
not a
it.
small jump.
That's
Not a
gonna
small
be that's
jump.
gonna be a huge jump, but could they gain a few more games and definitely lock in a wild card? I think so.
I don't. I honestly don't. I think they are a contender. I think they were a contender before, but really, you look at the National League, and we'll have our official predictions next week. But take the Dodgers, you take the Braves, you take whoever wins the NL Central. You take them out of the picture, right? So then you have your other 3 wild card spots. Are the Giants now better than the Philadelphia Phillies? Are they better than the Mets?
Yeah.
Are they better than the Diamondbacks? So there's 3 still ahead that I believe are still ahead of the Giants. Very curious what San Diego will look like with all the different moves that they did. Um, I think you and I both believe in the Chicago Cubs a bit more than some people, and you add in St. Louis that should have a bounce back year. It's going to be a tight race. This is a good move overall for the Giants, and it doesn't hurt them too much. It's a lot of money, but over a
Mhm.
short period of time. And if it doesn't work out this year, they can bounce and be totally fine. They're not on the hook for a long-term deal. But this is a team that looks like they want to make a second half run. Obviously, they signed Robbie Ray in the offseason. He's still coming off of his Tommy John surgery from the beginning of last year. What was the very first start with Seattle last year
Mhm.
when he got hurt? So what are you thinking? Like all-star break for him? So you get a Robbie Ray, Blake Snell 1-2 punch from July on. That could be really good. Obviously, I think if you're the Giants, you're going to ease him in. Like he may not even make a start for the first month of the season, maybe. Or if he does, he's only going to go 3 innings. Like the the early part of this year, spring training for Blake Snell, if they're smart about it. And then you hope that you're still in the running, and then it's Blake Snell, Robbie Ray, Logan Webb, 1, 2, 3. If you could sneak into the playoffs, the Giants could be a really scary team to play come October, I think. But
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to be in the mix come September.
Yeah, and I mean, does it change what we thought about a few weeks ago when we looked at the preseasons? We both picked the under. I had to go back and look. We both picked the under of 81 games. Does it change enough, because Arizona was at 83, San Francisco was 81 and a half with that signing. Does that change our thought process a little bit? I think they gain a few more games in there having him as the starter.
Yeah, it's
I
possible.
I think I would have to change my opinion to over, but I don't think that changes my opinion of the over with Arizona either. So
Yeah, according to the Vegas odds that we go, or Vegas insiders that we go on, that puts all of this together when we do our overs and unders, they are still at 81 and a half. I just pulled that up just to double check. So Vegas is not saying this is a big move, at least not yet. But we will see if it starts to make a move right before the beginning of the year. We'll see what bettors decide on if this is a big move or not. But I will say this. Blake Snell missing or slowly coming along through this beginning part of the year, it might work out in the Giants' favor. Our buddy Richie, who's a big baseball guy as well, has always noted that Blake Snell is a second half pitcher. So now it comes up to the point of if you don't pitch as much in the first half, does that still mean you're going to have a great growth in the second half? Or is the second half of the season now the first half of the season for Robbie Ray? It gets really interesting. But go through some numbers for you from Fangraphs. Robbie Ray in his career in the month of May and June has an ERA of 4.40. Once he hits July, it drops to 2.67. In August is a 2.6, and then in September and October it's 2.25. So I think I said Robbie Ray there the first time, but Blake Snell has once he gets going in the season, he is one of the toughest pitchers to face. So again, depends on the pitcher, it depends on the situation, but maybe not having Robbie Ray in those first couple months, pitching a ton of innings and then using him in that second half when he gets in his groove, it could work out really well, I think, for San Francisco.
Yeah, just we're both numbers people, and seeing and listening to those numbers just makes you, back that statement up even more. But baseball is baseball, and things are going to happen, and so I just hope they don't try to rush him in too quickly, and then and throw basically $30 million out the window for season one.
And that's why I said a couple weeks ago at that point, I didn't, as a Yankee fan, I didn't want Blake Snell. And I know a lot of people thought I was having sour grapes yesterday when I was bringing this up to the news, but it's not sour grapes. I didn't want him. And I mean, I hope he does well for the Giants. I have zero rooting interest in the NL West. So it bothers me not whoever wins that division, whether it's the Dodgers or if the Giants can get in, because Yankees are in the AL East. That's what I worry about. I worry about the American League. I'll watch the National League. I'm going to watch Blake Snell because he plays obviously on the West Coast, and there's only about 4 or 5 teams I can pick from when it's like 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, I want to turn a baseball game on. I don't have a lot of options, so I'll be watching, and we'll see how things go for him. Stick with baseball, as we said here, in just under 7 hours now, or no, 9 hours. I got to math people. Just under 9 hours from now, the Dodgers and the Padres are going to open up the 2024. What is that face for?
I was reading what it says is the Soul Series. I was trying to make sure the time I had was exactly
3 a.m. Pacific time.
Yeah.
You just gave me a weird ass face. Anyways, they are playing, as Robert said, in Seoul, South Korea. They're going to play a 2-game set. These do count for the regular season, but then they're going to have a week off, obviously, to come back into the States, probably play a couple of games just to get their bearings back and then go for that late push. But these 2 games do count. It's not the first time Major League Baseball has done that, but the question is, do you like that Major League Baseball does this?
For myself, no, because it's just a whole extra little bit of hype. I want to see everybody start at the same time, and I know they do stagger. A few teams don't pay on the very first opening day, but it just it sucks for us here on the West Coast. We're already in bed. It'd be easier for Eric waking up at 6 a.m.
No,
to
Eric
watch
is
the
not waking up at 6 a.m. He might still be up at 6 a.m., but he's not waking up at 6 a.m. for anything.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just a little on the rough side. Now, 2 different teams. I think, I'm almost 1,000% feeling that the Dodgers are gonna get over there in Seoul and just take care of business against San Diego. And I'm afraid that this is not gonna be. I think these games might be an 8-2 score. 7-3 score. It's going to be some big runs from the Dodgers.
That's going to be really interesting. Obviously, you get some of those names over there. Darvish will be a starting pitcher, I believe, in the morning for the first game for the
Against
Padres. And I think that place is going to be really fun. I do like this, and you have to do it at the beginning of the year. A team is not going to travel over there. It's not like the NFL where you can put a bye week in there and like spread this stuff out so you can go to other countries. So for Major League Baseball, it has to be at the beginning, and it has to be you have to give them enough time to then get back into their rhythm here at home. So that's why it's always a week in advance. But it's cool that they continue to grow the sport in other countries. I think the World Baseball Classic continues to get bigger and bigger because of it. And it's because you get like so many fantastic players in all of these different countries. And then when you're able to shine a light on Major League Baseball and give them a really good product, you're going to get more and more people that are going to come in and not only watch your sport but participate in your sport. Obviously, people always make fun of, oh, the Americans always win the World Series because the teams are all here because it's impossible to spread teams out throughout the world. But like, there's so many international players now in baseball. We had that resurgence in Latin America, and now we've gotten a lot of players from Japan. So now they just keep finding new places to really grow the sport. And Korea now the 5th different country that Major League Baseball is going to play opening opening regular season baseball in, and I think it's really, really good for the sport.
Yeah.
It sucks for us, but let's be honest. If these 2 teams were playing on a random Wednesday, Thursday, good chance we're not sitting down watching every pitch of it either.
But you did say it. That you look at the first matchup in this one. It is, you said, Darvish for the Padres taking on Tyler Glasnow. That's a great matchup. I do, and I do like that. Then you look at day number 2, and it's going to be Joe Musgrove for the Padres taking on Yamamoto. So I mean, that helps out that Asian born and those guys that are of different ethnicities of coming in. I do like that, but these are 2 great matchups. I wish I could be awake to watch them live.
Yeah, and we'll watch the highlights and we'll see how things go, and then it'll just get us a little bit more hyped up for the start of the full regular season next week. Trivia question though for you.
Oh dear.
This is the 5th country outside, of the United States or Canada that Major League Baseball is playing a regular season game in. Can you name the other 4?
Mexico.
Yep.
Canada.
No, I said outside of the United States and Canada.
Outside. Puerto Rico.
Yep.
The Dominican Republic.
No.
Wow.
You should know one.
Japan.
Yeah. Ichiro announced he was retiring at the end of the year.
Yep. And I remember them and the Mariners taking him out of the game in the one game. I want to say China, but I don't.
No, Dodgers were part of the other one. I remember it because there was a lot of restrictions and rules because they played it at a big Polo Grounds field. So the place was just enormous. But the Dodgers and Diamondbacks played in Sydney, Australia back in 2014. Again, a 2-game set. Dodgers won both of those games. We'll see if they win both this week. All right, let's start previewing the AL Central, the little stepchild of Major League Baseball. Minnesota won the division last year with 87 wins, and they were the only team in the division to finish over 500. How bad this thing was. Detroit and Cleveland Detroit had 78 wins. Cleveland was 76. White Sox 61 and 101, and they were fourth in the division ahead of Kansas City, who lost a team tying record 106 games last year, only 56 victories. What a horrible division this is, and it did not get much better. Let's just be honest. You look at some of the key moves. First for the Guardians, nothing. Scott Barlow, Estevan Florial, Austin Hedges. I mean, they didn't lose much. They are definitely in the rebuild, and they're waiting for some of their youngsters to get in there. I am still shocked they have not moved on from Jose Ramirez and brought in a bunch of prospects for him. His talent just continues to just fall apart there. Excited to see Bo Naylor get a lot more action behind the plate for Cleveland. Kyle Manzardo is their number 2 prospect. He's supposed to be coming up at some point in the middle of the year. See if they get the offense going there. I have very little hopes for the Guardians this year. For the Royals, they brought in a lot of veteran pitchers, and we'll see what that does for them. Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, Will Smith, Chris Stratton, Nick Anderson. Okay. Again, I'm not fully buying into that. Detroit, same thing, but I think they're in a better situation than Kansas City. But they bring in Kenta Maeda, Jack Flaherty, Shelby Miller. They do, of course, lose Miggy, who retired after last year. So we'll see what they do without his leadership in the clubhouse. For Minnesota, who won the division, they brought in Carlos Santana, Anthony DeSclafani. Lost a lot of pitchers in Sonny Gray, Kenta Maeda. Lost Jorge Polanco. Michael Taylor is gone from this team. Probably a positive. They lost Joey Gallo. I'm not still bitter of what he did when he was a Yankee. Not at all. And then the Chicago White Sox got a new general manager in Chris Getz, and he went absolutely bonkers in the offseason. Shall I read off all of the key additions and key departures for you? Which would you like first? The people joining this team or the team leaving this team?
I would say the one saying bye-bye.
You want to say the goodbye first? So first off, they lost shortstop Tim Anderson. They lost pitchers Liam Hendricks and Brian Shaw and Mike Clevenger and Aaron Bummer, which is still a fantastic name for a pitcher. Jose Urena is gone. Gregory Santos is gone. Those are really the bigger names. Mm-hmm. Yasmani Grandal, the catcher, is no longer with the White Sox as well. Romy Gonzalez is gone. Half the team for the White Sox is gone. In their place, Eric Fede, Michael Soroka, Nicky Lopez, the second baseman, Paul DeYoung at short, a couple more pitchers, and Tim Hill. Jared Schuster is on this team. Martin Maldonado and Max Stacy to be in the battery positions. Dominic Fletcher is on this team. Who knows? The over-under on this team is impossible to say because it's literally 2/3 of the team has flipped and changed, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, Dylan Cease also left. I did not put that into the departures. That was not on the list they made back then, but obviously he got traded to the Padres not too long ago.
Do you feel like this team is the real life scenario of the movie Major League, where the ownership is just clearing house and bringing in whoever to try to
No,
re-get this team?
because they got rid of whoever. Other than
Well, yeah,
Dylan Cease, there was nobody great. Tim Anderson kind of was a flash in the pan. It seemed like he can hit home runs, but he would bat 210. So they are just like the GM basically went, he didn't like the feeling of the clubhouse and nothing was meshing. So why
right.
not just have a full reset? Because they're not good anyways. They won 61 games last year. So we will see where things go. Out of all these moves and everything that's changing, do you think Minnesota is still the top front runner for this division, or is there somebody in the weeds that might finally come up, give them some contention?
I think I've been on with Kansas City. I think they take a step forward again this year, but I don't think it's enough to get it back in front of in front of Minnesota whatsoever. I think they're going to be over. I think just a little bit, but as far as for me, Chicago, I think they're going to be way underperforming this year.
All right, well, let's get into it. As Hagen has already brought up, we do over unders this year as we do go through each division. And then next week, after we go through the AL East as well, we'll give you all of our division winners, our wild cards, our award winners. We'll give you the World Series matchup we think is going to happen. And then Robert will give you a team that'll finish dead last. Not that I did much better. So we'll see how it goes this year. You already brought it up. The Minnesota Twins won 87 games last year, won the division by 9 games. They're over under 85 and a half.
I think they're just over. I think they're going to be just short of 90, but I think it's enough to come away with the uh, the title out of the AL.
90, getting close to 90 wins. It's too much
It's
for
so tough.
Minnesota. They're always that team that they are like the Pittsburgh Steelers in the National Football League. You always look at the roster and go, "There's zero chance this team's going to be good." And then at the end of the year, you're like, "Oh, they finished over 500. How in the world did that happen?" But no, they're not going to get over 85 wins. So I'm going to take the under there. Spoilers for who I think is going to win the AL Central, but the Detroit Tigers, 97 and a half wins, over or under for you?
I, I'm I've been back and forth that when I was typing this one. I still think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say just under. Just under.
Yeah, I'm going the exact opposite. I'm going over. I think they win the AL Central. I think they're going to be a really fun team to watch. The offense definitely is really young. They need to take a step forward collectively. I like some of the pitching that they have on this team, and we'll see if they can grow. But I think they really were building a big nucleus behind Miguel Cabrera. He was the Jose Ramirez of the
Mm-hmm.
Tigers for many years, where it was just him and a bunch of scrubs while they retooled underneath. He has since retired, and now those scrubs have turned into some pretty good young talent as they try to become a powerhouse in themselves.
Well, and that's the thing. As you were saying that, I was pulled up their roster and was looking at it. I'm like, who do you start in the outfield? I mean, you got Parker Meadows, 24. You got a 23-year-old, a 25-year-old. They've got some youth in
Yeah.
this ball club. So
The Detroit Tigers are doing what I have just started on MLB The Show 24, where I did a franchise mode and I did the franchise draft. And my rule was if you were over the age of 25, I could not draft you. So we'll see how that went. Yes, as I have started that journey. I always like to test myself with these kind of things. We'll see how it all goes. But I am taking the Tigers to win the AL Central and go over 79 and a half wins. Cleveland Guardians won 76 games last year. Vegas thinks they're going to slightly improve. They have them at 77 and a half wins.
I think this team's going to be over. They've got some guys there with Tyler Freeman, Andres Jimenez. I think this team takes a step forward. I don't think it's enough to win, but I think they make a big push forward and to give the Twins a huge ride in this one that I think will come down to the final week of the season. Who's going to end up winning it?
Well, you said Cleveland is over. I do think that their run being near the top of this division is coming to an end. They really need to just move on from Jose Ramirez, get as many prospects from him as you possibly can before it's too late. Because really, yes, Andres Jimenez is good, and there's some decent talent here, but they're not going to compete. I give them between 70 and 75 wins, so I will take the under. The shocking over under to me is the Kansas City Royals, who won 56 games last year, which yes, it's not an underperformance by them. Vegas has them improving by 17 games this year. Their over under is 73 and a half.
Yeah, well, you know who I almost took last year, and I was high on him all year long, and that was Bobby Witt. I'm still high on what this kid can do with the power that he's got, and just standing 6'1", just under 200 pounds. I think he is going to take another step forward for this team, and I think it's enough. And I'm going to take the over on this team.
So you're going to say this team is going to improve by more than 17 games?
I gotta have a feeling with it, and I was highly impressed with what he did last year. You look at the
You do
rest.
understand that one person does not make a team. Right?
Listen, here's the thing. I took the St. Louis Cardinals last year, and they were actually was terrible, and so yep, I'm taking a chance. And you got Adam Frazier, older guy, some leadership there, and Nick Prado also going to back up in this one. So
that's too much. 17 games is too much. I do think that they're going to be fun to watch. Cole Reagans is a fun pitcher. I like to watch him on the mound. I've had him in fantasy off and on throughout the last year, but 17 games from last year is just too much for them to improve. The Chicago White Sox, 61 wins last year. We just talked about they have a completely different team at this point this year. Of course, no Dylan Cease. Vegas has them at 63 and a half, slightly over what they did last year, even though they lost some of their big talent. But you know what? I'm going to say they go slightly over. I will not put them over 70 wins, but I don't think that it's a complete train wreck. Sometimes when you just clean house and you put in new people, sometimes things click. So give me the White Sox to not be a complete dumpster fire this year.
I think they're going to be under. I really do. They've gotten a couple of older veterans in there, but is it enough to make things happen? And then with the moving of Cease, I don't think they're going to hit that same number. So give me the under 63. They're going to be about 58, I think.
All right, there you go. That is our preview of the AL Central. Again, next week, the AL East to wrap up our division previews. And then we will give you all of our division winners, playoff teams, World Series matchup. That is sure to be 1000% correct, like it is every year with us, and awards and all that other fun stuff before the start of the full slate for Major League Baseball. Before we get on to our brackets, Joel Damon had a really good weekend.
Yeah, Joel played at the Players, one of my favorite tournaments down there at TPC Gallgrass. Like I said earlier, had the first weekend off in a long time. I actually sat and watched a ton of golf. Great competition, but it was cool to watch the local boy do really well. He ended up finishing tied for 11th and had his biggest payout as a professional golfer, making just over $600,000 this weekend with that one. But it led into a lot of thoughts on how, and I got asked a couple of times if I had watched the new Full Swing episode. Sir, have you watched the newest version of Full Swing from
No,
Netflix yet?
not at all. I only ever watched the Gino Joe episode from last year. I have not. Didn't even know season 2 came out.
Yeah. So, and that's one thing I got asked, and there's been a couple of little clips, with how Gino and Joel have played over the last couple of years, and there was a clip that came out of this Full Swing episode that talked about and seeing Gino get very emotional, Joel get very emotional, and it's time for Joel to really start playing better golf, and I want to throw this out and ask you, do you think a lot of this mentality is coming from him being a dad now, but uh, he has already, out of the 7 tournaments that he's played this year, he's only missed the cut 3 times. And when I say it seems like a lot, you're almost half right now with missing 3 cuts, but extremely close in those cuts. 3 strokes on one, 5 strokes on another. So very close. But do you think with this new mentality of him going in there and him playing for uh, maybe different reasons, and he talks about, you know, not basically poo-pooing his opportunities of being a professional golfer and working on his game. Do you think this could be the best season he's ever had? Is this makes his biggest check? He made more making playing this weekend and finishing 11th than what he made when he won Putakana back in 2021 and taking home $540,000 in a first place trophy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you get a different mindset. Sometimes things click. I've not watched this new episode. Like I said, I didn't even know season 2 had come out. I will go check it out as those new. I grew up with Gino. He was a friend of mine through grade school and such. So it's always fun to see where things go. Hopefully, he'll be golfing with us come August, as long as schedules don't get all flipped around. And so I have to check that out and see how things go. But yeah, mentality is such a big thing, especially in a sport like golf when it is you and your caddy out there against the world, and nobody can make the shot but you. I mean, I've
Mhm.
never been in that kind of a situation for playing on some of the bigger stages that Joel has been able to with golf, but it's the same thing with bowling, where you get up there and it's you versus the lane, like it is you versus the golf course, and it really is how much work did you put in
Mhm.
before you got out there, and not only on your physical game but your mental game. And I know in the first season of Full Swing, Joel talked a lot about just, somebody has to be the 74th best golfer, and that's
Mhm.
me. And now I think that through all of this, even though not watching the episode and hearing from him, but it seems like maybe he's going, you know what, now with the other responsibilities in my life, maybe 74th isn't where I want to be. And I want to push myself to give my family the best opportunity and the best situation that I possibly can, instead of just going, this is really cool that I'm a professional golfer. Now he wants to be a really good professional golfer. So good
Yeah,
for him.
and he's already in the 7 tournaments. Like I said, he's missed 3 cuts already, but has cashed 4 times. Already has made 600, just over $660,000 this year alone in cashes. So, the last couple years, he's cashed 16, 17, 18 times over the past 4 seasons. So I think this is just going to keep adding to it. And then he gets in there. Could we possibly see another win under his belt? I think that it could be a strong possibility, and hopefully with those changes. But again, great tournament. One of my favorite holes on the golf course, with it being the 17th at
Mhm.
TPC. Scotty Scheffler, who played amazing on Saturday, excuse me, on Sunday, shoots 64 on Sunday to come away with the win to overtake Wyndham Clark and Xander Schauffele. Feel so bad for Wyndham Clark. He lipped out a putt to force a tie in that one, but great tournament with that. And then, we're only a couple weeks away from my favorite tournament, the Masters.
Yeah, getting really, really close. We will celebrate the Masters and some other famous golf course in a couple weeks on Bad Brackets. Ain't gonna be a part of that episode, so keep an eye out on that. All right, get your brackets out because we'll tell you who not to pick. Maybe I don't know how it's gonna work. We talked about this, I think, off air when we were recording Bad Brackets last night. You and I used to I get so red. Like February would hit, and we would watch a lot of college basketball. And beginning of March would happen, and the conference tournaments would get going. We'd really get into it, and we'd have all these discussions about who we thought could be upsets and who could really make runs at this thing. And then the bracket came out, and we'd all get together and share our brackets and have conversations. Thursday would come on, we'd just be glued to this tournament. This year, I filled out a bracket. That is basically what I have done this year for the NCAA tournament. What has changed between the two of us right now, at least in the year 2024? Or has college basketball and March Madness just kind of it doesn't have the same hype this year? What do you think?
I think for me is how busy we've been. I mean, both of us going 90 miles an hour at the high school level, picking up wrestling a little bit more for me. So I've had a few other nights of doing that. And so the TV doesn't go on to all these college games. Yes, we hear a little bit about the Washington Cougars and the hype with what they have done this year, trying to make a push for the Pac-12 as the Pac-12 dissolves and goes by the byway. And it just didn't feel weird. It felt kind of weird with Gonzaga. I mean, 7 losses on the season. It didn't feel like the same Gonzaga, and I didn't fall into the hype of it this year with Gonzaga on every night and all this, and I think that just took away from that. But I think more of anything is following all of our area high school basketball was a little bit funner than it was to follow, teams that you get to see maybe once or twice a year.
I think a lot of it for me too is I've gotten more and more with Lewis Clark State athletics and both of their basketball teams making some pretty good runs. The men still on their run, but yeah, it's the same thing. I try to set things up. I have the 2 monitors here in the office where I'll try to work while watching something in the background. It just seems like college basketball is never what I end up choosing to watch. It's a lot of getting ready for the baseball season or watching old football stuff or watching Aussie Rules football highlight videos or full games, depending on where we are during the week. And college basketball has just kind of slipped through. But even without that, there's not other people in our lives that are going, hey, who would like the people that we used to talk to all the time? It seems like for all of us it has slipped up. So I don't know if the hype of March Madness has kind of slipped up, or it's just to me, I think college athletics are really starting to lose their shine with the way these conferences continue to just eat each other up. I know college basketball is slightly different than college football, but obviously they get affected by it as well. All the NIL deals that are going on. And I don't know if it's just to me, I think I've really started to lose the luster of March Madness with so many players either going one and done and moving on to the NBA. So I don't really start getting invested in what they do at the collegiate level, or they transfer every year. So like, especially for a team like Gonzaga, who was always fun to watch because you'd get a player and you'd watch him for 4 years. That's not even the case for Gonzaga anymore. They have a lot of players that are there for 1 year, and either they move on to the NBA or they go, well, I'm not quite ready for the NBA, so I'm going to go play for this team now. And it's not that team spirit. It's not the team camaraderie that we used to get in March Madness. And I think that takes a lot of the hype away from it for me.
100%. And you hit the one thing that for me is the big one, and that's all the NIL deals. And I think the most important thing is they don't play for the love of the game. It doesn't feel like they're
No,
playing for the love of the game.
stop it.
No,
No.
let me. So the thing about I listened to a talk that Nick Saban gave, and I think this is a couple years old when I watched this video a few weeks ago, and it was talking
Mhm.
about him getting his players ready to be a young man and playing the games to enjoy it. Now, I know these guys are going to go and make their money, but it just doesn't feel like they're wanting to play for the championship. They want to play to get out to go get their money.
That's how they wanted to play before. But now with the transfer portal, the moment they have adversity, they move on. It's not the name, image, and likeness stuff. It's like, I want the players to go get their money. Do you know how much money NCAA is going to make on this tournament alone? $2 billion with a B. Do you know how many dollars go to those athletes?
Not
Nothing.
much.
Nothing. They don't get paid. They're not employees. Yes, they get their scholarships and such, but to me, it's the transfer portal and it's the ability to bounce. And I think they went a bit too far with the transfer portal. They wanted to make it easier for players to leave when coaches left because the coaches bounce all the time. But now it's just gotten sad. Like the NEI continues to get hit with this all the time. How many times you went, oh, this player left? Or it's like, oh, we're going to have this great team this year. And then it's like, where did these people go? They all transfer out. And that's the stuff that gets to me.
Yeah,
It's like,
the commitment.
I can't, again, I don't fully blame the players because, the system allows them to do it. But I can't name you one player on any of these teams anymore because the moment I start getting into it, they leave and they move on to other stuff, and it gets a little bit more difficult. Free agency, at least for professional sports, you only have 30 to 32 teams to focus on. There's 300 and something as far as who could make it into the tournament. So it just gets so hard to pay attention to. So yeah, it's just different. I'm not saying it's worse. It's just different. And it's gotten it where we just don't pay attention to it as much, I don't think. But let's look at our brackets. We'll go through these quickly because you're not going to get a lot of crazy insights from us. But we'll look on the left side of the bracket, at least from what I have, the East and the West brackets. Give me, just on the entire side, give me your biggest upset. We're not going to go quadrant to quadrant, just on the entire left side of that bracket. What was your biggest upset?
I'm double checking here. Yeah, I've got a 5-12. I'm taking UAB to knock off San Diego State in the East.
Interesting. I have San Diego State, my Sweet 16. Why? Don't know. Just, again, luckily with some of the websites like ESPN and Yahoo, they'll put up some stats for you. A lot of the times I want to know how many top 25 teams they played and how well they did against them throughout. I like to get the teams that have been battle tested throughout the year. So I do have San Diego State winning, but I do have the other 12-5 matchup. I know a lot of people are going to love St. Mary's, but Grand Canyon had some really good stats that I was looking at. So I will take Grand Canyon to beat St. Mary's in that opening round. And that was really it. Do you have Washington State winning a game?
I have Washington State winning one against Drake, but I have them losing to Iowa State. The only other one that I have that is an upset, I'm taking the number 11 New Mexico over Clemson in that one.
I actually have New Mexico in the Sweet 16. Again, do not take this to the bank. Don't copy my bracket. This will be very red when we come back on Tuesday. That's for sure. But that's always the fun of these anyways. But all right, give me your teams that make the Elite Eight and then who will make the Final Four.
So in this side, I've got UConn and Iowa State in the East, and then I have North Carolina and Baylor. Yes, I have both number ones moving on into the Final Four. So UConn and North Carolina on the East, West, so both number one teams there.
That's so boring.
I know. I went a little boring.
I have UConn and Iowa State in the East, and Alabama pulling the upset on North Carolina, and then facing Arizona. And then I have the two seeds moving on to the Final Four: Iowa State and Arizona.
Well, what's funny is as much as we got to watch St. Mary's play this year, I have St. Mary's upsetting Alabama in the second round.
Well, we'll see if any of us are right or if Charleston goes on a crazy run and just messes up everything. Who knows? I don't. That's for sure. We will hit the other side of the bracket sometime in the second hour and get to your Final Fours and stuff. We will also get on the women's bracket, give you our Final Fours on that as well. If you're watching live, go ahead, or if you're watching after the fact, you can still leave comments. Let us know your Final Fours and your champion for both the men's bracket and the women's bracket. And then you can come make fun of us when your bracket is better than ours, because most likely is going to be that case. Get to some NFL news. Aaron Donald ends up calling it a career after just 154 games. He had 111 sacks in his career, 10-time Pro Bowler, of course, a Super Bowl champion when the Rams beat the Cincinnati Bengals, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and also Defensive Rookie of the Year when he started back in 2014. Your thoughts on that news?
Yeah, I was a little shocked to see him step away as he's still one of I thought one of the most dominant defensive ends to ever play the game. And for what he has done in his career, I think he was I think he was still more had the ability to play, and I was very shocked to see him say, I'm done. It's time to take a step away. So, I mean, 10 years, but
Yeah.
for me, I think what he did for the game, I think he could easily be a Hall of Famer. Does he make first ballot Hall of
Yes.
Fame? I think
Yes.
he's gonna be right
Yes.
close. I don't know. I
How
don't
is
know
he
if
right close?
I think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be a second year person. I really do.
That's
Something tells us.
insanity to me.
Well, I am insane, but I
Name name the better edge rusher in the last 25 years.
better edge rusher. There's been a couple that I would probably pick. I like the Bosas. I mean, I think he's better. I think it doesn't boil down to me. It boils down to all those
Yeah.
silly writers, and so
And they all think he's one of, if not the best to do it, at least since 2000.
I
Right.
think I think if he added a couple more years, I think he would be
It's
guaranteed.
not about years. It's about domination. He played 10 years. That's long enough to put in your resume. Do you want him to play until he goes out and has seasons where he puts down his averages because he goes out there and just plays too long?
Well, you look at what he's done over the last couple. I think he's with the changes of who he's had in there, and the way teams have figured out how to defend him and protect him from getting to their quarterback. I mean, his last real dominant season was 2021, where he had 12 and a half sacks.
Yeah.
Uh,
So why do you want him to play any further if he's past his prime? He's
I
got
don't.
his money. He's got his Super Bowl. If he's
I,
happy with retiring, he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. You put him in there in permanent marker. In 5 years from now, he's in. Zero question asked. The bigger question is, where does he rank for you on the all-time edge rusher list? Talked about in the past 25 years. ESPN had a great article. When was this posted? Last year, before they begin the season last year, of who was the best edge rusher by season. So I'm just going to go through these players by season You just say yes or no if you think Aaron Donald was better than them for the totality of their career. You ready?
Okay.
Nick Bosa. I think
I
we'll
like.
just say Nick Bosa is to be determined.
Mm-hmm. I would say that. Yep.
TJ Watt.
I love the way that guy plays. I think he's. I think they're still even there.
No, not even close. Aaron Donald's so much better. Von Miller.
No.
No. Wait, no, that he's not better. That Aaron Donald is better.
I think
I
think Aaron Donald is better than Von Miller.
Gotcha. How about JJ Watt? I think that's the closest one, but I still think Aaron Donald was better.
I think JJ would probably be better.
That shocks me. DeMarcus Ware?
No.
Jared Allen?
DeMarcus Ware for me falls short on a little bit of everything. So,
Jason Taylor was really good for a long time, but I think Aaron Donald was much better than him. Dwight Freeney? I think Aaron Donald was better. Michael Strahan was really, really good. Yes, he has the sack record for a single season, but it was because his buddy Brett Favre allowed him to get it. Warren Sapp was really good. But I think Aaron Donald was better than Warren Sapp.
Even Reggie White and Bruce Smith?
I haven't got there yet.
I'd say
I got to Warren Sapp.
I get that.
I haven't got to those years. You calm down. I'm going person by person, and you're like, but these guys, I'm not to those people yet. Aaron Donald or Warren Sapp, who would you want on your team? In their prime.
I would say probably Aaron there.
Yeah. Warren Sapp was absolutely phenomenal and part of one of the best defenses of all time. I think Aaron Donald, which he showed in the Super Bowl, can just take over teams. But yes, then you get down to it. Reggie White, Bruce Smith, Lawrence Taylor. I
think more of him as a linebacker than I do an edge rusher.
But an edge is that. A guy that can play linebacker-ish, but also can just blitz off the edge.
Yeah, 3-4 guy, depending on the defense.
This was a pass rusher list. But yes, Reggie White, Bruce Smith, Aaron Donald. I think those are 1, 2, 3. You can put them in whatever order you want. But that's, to me, a first ballot Hall of Famer blank. Just give him his jacket.
Yeah.
If you're a top 3 in your position all time, unless you're a punter, I guess. Are there 3 punters in the Hall of Fame yet?
McAfee hasn't made it that far yet, has he?
No. He
don't think he will.
All right, let's get a homerish. Though I didn't put this in the show notes. Robert wants to talk about this team.
I was going to say one other one really quick, and the big news was local area boy, and we he's a little ways down the road, but Leighton Vander Esch also retires after just 6 seasons in the NFL because of injury and all that. So hats off to him. I mean, I will mention him coming from an 8-man football environment to play in an 11-man down in Boise and then into the NFL. Hats off to him and what he did in his, short career.
Just call it normal football. 11-man football just sounds weird. 8-man football is weird enough. We don't have to say that. But yes, how about my New York Jets? Quiet at the beginning of the offseason and the free agency moves. But to me, nothing flashy, nothing crazy. But man, did they hit the needs that they needed to address. I am so excited to be disappointed come September. We're back to that. We see all those memes of different teams, whether it's baseball, basketball, football. We all have seen them. The Dallas Cowboys, all right, get excited and then mess up in the draft and then say we're going to win the Super Bowl and then, okay, we're here. And New York Jets, we get excited in the offseason. We get even more excited in the draft. And then week 1, we cry. And we're in this excitement phase. But they went out and got a bunch of offensive linemen, which was the biggest need. Of course, Tyron Smith was the biggest of those signings. Please stay healthy. That's always going to be the key for any of these signings is please stay healthy. Also John Simpson, Morgan Moses. So now that offensive line, when healthy, is set. You add in Elijah Vera Tucker and Joe Tippmann to that mix. That's a really good offensive line for the 5 plays they will all play together. Still thinking that they might go out and get now I'm going to blank out his name, the former Packer, who is his really good buddy that just was released from Green Bay, has the really big name, but I'm blanking on it. While I look it up real quick, what are you thinking of these off-season moves so far?
The sad part about it is seeing a couple of them leave from, one of them from Baltimore, or 2 of them from Baltimore, picking up a safety and Chuck Clark. Also, John Simpson was huge. I think I messaged you as soon as I saw it. I was like, holy cow, your team is just starting to build the pieces around each other, and even having a steady backup with Tyrod Taylor and Zerline. But I think what you did offensive line wise is the biggest, hands down, moves that I have seen in the free agency signings.
Bakhtiari is the offensive lineman whose name I could not think of. He also has injury concerns, but if you get enough people with injury concerns in a line, maybe you can mesh them together as 5 people. We will see. Yeah, I'm excited to see where things go. The one thing, and we'll get to it as we get closer to the NFL draft, it now makes me more excited to watch the NFL draft, mostly because the Jets have the 10th pick. Until this last 2 weeks or so, when they would really address that need, I went, all right, best offensive lineman available will be picked at 10. There's a possibility the Jets, if there's a lot of offensive linemen that they really like still on the board, could trade down, try to create some draft capital. That would be the excitement for my draft, because New York doesn't have a 2nd round pick because of the Aaron Rodgers trade. So maybe they try to work down a little bit, create some draft capital. That was going to be the excitement of the NFL draft as a Jets fan. Now, with the 3 offensive linemen signed, and yes, they also get Mike Williams, so you get a wide receiver and a target for Aaron Rodgers, so it makes it even more interesting. What do the Jets do in the draft? They can still go offensive linemen because, as we've said, Tyron Smith is not the most durable of offensive linemen, and there are a lot of fantastic offensive linemen out there to choose from. Do you go out and get a weapon for Aaron Rodgers? Do you just continue to trade? Do you do the New England Patriots move and just slowly trade down and build up draft capital throughout that first round? What do the Jets do when we get to that NFL draft?
I think as much as they've proven with their moves of, offensive linemen, if I was them, I would definitely go and find one more. I think one more weapon. The big Mike Williams deal today. I'm a little lenient. Yes, that's a big name to have. He's very capable of playing. Injury prone. That's the big thing I see with this one, especially after his injury this year. And for them to pay him 15 up to, I should clarify that they have said played up to 15 million. I think that scares me. So for me, and this one, if that pick is still sitting there, I'm going weapon, and I'm going to get a number 1 receiver to join that ball club.
Well, it is funny you say that. It's a good transition for you. But Daniel Jeremiah of NFL.com came out with his 3.0 NFL mock draft. He's a regular guest on the Rich Eisen show, and they always talk about his drafts. Rich Eisen brought it up today that until his final mock draft, which comes out the day before the draft, he never includes trades. But he feels like this year a lot of trades are going to happen. So he just came out today with his NFL mock draft 3.0, and he included trades. Shall we go through it real quick?
Sure.
Okay. Of course, Chicago Bears with the number 1 pick select Caleb Williams. No surprise there. Washington with the second pick a quarterback in Drake May. Number 3, the New England Patriots will take quarterback from LSU, Jaden Daniels. Pick number 4, which was the Arizona Cardinals, will get traded to the Minnesota Vikings for quarterback from Michigan, J.J. McCarthy. So according to this mock draft, 4 quarterbacks will go in the first 4 picks. Remember that, because we'll get to it in just a second. Pick number 5, which was the Los Angeles Chargers, and maybe this now changes with Mike Williams going to New York, but the Chargers trade it to the New York Jets, who draft Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. Where do I sign up? I would lose my mind. I don't know if we are going to do another live first round reaction stream like we've done before, but if that's the case, I have to have the bleeper ready. Now I'm going to lose it, and I'm going to scream Super Bowl, and then the Jets are going to go 7-10.
I think you're right, because the biggest target that is out there, if you look at the different lists, the best available, and everybody's best available guy is always different.
Mhm.
But this guy being consistent, and if everything shakes out what I'm thinking is going to happen, I think Marvin Harrison is going to be sitting there. That would be unbelievable. You look at the next probably best guy on that list. Is it the guy from Washington? Dunze? Dunze? Is that how I don't
Yeah.
or is it Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU?
Yeah.
I mean, I
Malik
think those
Neighbors
guys.
is also one of those. There's a lot of great wide receivers in this draft. Very interesting is Brock Bowers is all over the top 15 of these mock drafts as well, a tight end from Georgia. So yeah, NFL draft always really, really interesting to see what will play out, especially with as we get closer and closer, what trades are going to happen. And now, as a Jets fan, it went from, all right, what offensive lineman are we going to get to? What kind of stuff can one Joe Douglas come up with and figure things out? Because it is a win now mentality for
Right.
the Jets, because the window with Aaron Rodgers is very small. Could be even smaller if he decides to run for vice president. Brought up the fact that in this mock draft that the top 4 picks were used for quarterbacks. If that's the case, my question is, you go back to 2021. It's 3 years ago. 5 of the first 15 picks went to quarterbacks. One of them is still a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Only 2 of them are even still on their original teams. So what is going on with the National Football League? Are they overvaluing drafting a quarterback, and then are they dumping too quickly?
Well, I think for my thought process is it's always it has turned that it is all about the quarterback now, and now we see how much things have changed with the running back. Get a year out of them, get them 2 years out of them, and move them on. You look at that; you're 100% right. The only starter that is still have been playing basically since day one, except for when he was injured, is Trevor Lawrence. He's definitely hands down feels like the best player to come out of that class. Quarterback wise, but on the other hand, you look at Justin Fields. Did he get a fair shake with? Did he have the weapons around him? Zach Wilson, the roller coaster that is Zach Wilson. Trey
That is the
Lance.
New York. No, you can say that is the New York Jets.
Yeah, but Trey Lance. Trey Lance was proven to come out of North Dakota State, and he was going to be the next big thing. And in walks Brock Purdy. So, do I think they overvalue him a little bit? I think they would do a little bit, but it has now turned into a throwing league where if you don't throw for 300, 270 to 300 yards a game, it's a down game.
But to me, in 2021, Jacksonville was your first overall pick. Trevor Lawrence went first. Zach Wilson went second. Trey Lance went third. Justin Fields went 11th. Mac Jones went 15th. Do you know what all of that means? For the most part, you went to a garbage team. You went to a team that really struggled and could not win, and that's why they earned a top draft pick. So you are expecting a 22, 23, 24-year-old young man to learn an NFL system, and he better do it within a year or two and turn your franchise around, or they're gone. That is what is so shocking to me. Trevor Lawrence is still the starting quarterback of Jacksonville. Zach Wilson technically is still on the New York Jets, but right now he would be the third string and probably not even make the team. The Jets are trying to move him. Trey Lance is now with the Dallas Cowboys as a backup. Justin Fields is backing up Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh now, and Mac Jones is backing up Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. This is after only 3 years, right? None of these guys are getting a full shake. None of them are getting a good chance to even learn and grow. And you look what Jordan Love has been able to do, where he played under Aaron Rodgers. He made the playoffs last year. Patrick Mahomes waited basically a year. He played the last week and got going. And then you look at other examples. Baker Mayfield. He just got $100 million contract on his fourth team because somebody finally gave him a chance and something clicked finally where he could show off the talent that a lot of people thought he had going into the draft. Sam Darnold just got picked up, and he could be a starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Jared Goff was looked at as a laughingstock and was traded to Detroit for a better quarterback, and then he led the Detroit Lions to the NFC Championship game. So it's like, we have so many examples of quarterbacks that were just left for dead and then finally got into a better situation, worked their way up, got to a starter spot, and showed why they got drafted as high as they did in the first place. I think teams just give up on these quarterbacks far too fast, or they just don't give them enough time to grow. And we do that as fans too. Like I've said many times on this show, I'm done with Zach Wilson. So as a fan, I get it. I'm part of the problem. But it's just interesting that we do this every single year where, we have to trade up. We have to get the fourth best quarterback in this draft class. And then 2 years later, you're going, that was the worst draft ever. What a horrible pick by us. So we're going to trade up and take the third best quarter. It's just a horrible cycle until you finally hit the jackpot and get one right.
Well, you look and I'm going to steer just a little bit away from quarterbacks, but you look at that draft class, and you tell me, we put a lot of pressure on all of these guys to come in for our teams and who we want to root for of all that. But if you look at this draft class, tell me which one of these guys was the best pickup in this one. And for me, I know it's a hands down pick, and it happens to be the 12th pick of this draft, and that is Micah Parsons. I think if you look at this draft class of who's there, there's a few that have made a decent or have had a decent career. Devon Smith has gotten better over the years. Micah Parsons has just come out and just been 100%. Baltimore had the same thing. That was the year we got Rashad Bateman, but it's taken Bateman time to get going. And I think you hit it on the head. It's not just the quarterbacks. We've got to find the coaches to get these guys molded, but you want instant gratification with these guys and instant, numbers to come out. But we know these are young men still that are 21, 22 years of age and still learning and grooming themselves. But you look at, tell me another name on that list that has still playing with the numbers that they were projected to do. That was also the class that you had Travis Etienne, Kadarius Toney. Why am I drawing the blank? Not Devontae. Jalen Waddle. I was trying
Yeah.
for the other.
Waddle
The
was
other.
really good. Jamar
he was
Chase
a-
to me is the one that really stands out. That was fantastic from this draft class. Kyle Pitts was a disappointment with Atlanta. Yeah, this draft. I think was this the first time we did a live
I think so.
reaction, and boy, did none of this draft work out. We all got excited from it, and for the most part, things didn't go as planned. All right, let's get back to our brackets, shall
All
we?
right.
Let's
Sure.
just go ahead and do this. I know we got a sports related draft we usually do at the top of the hour, but I'm going to wait and see if anybody shows up, starts having conversations, be a judge, and let me get my win back. But
Yeah,
let's get
we
into
tied
it.
last week.
Yeah, we went 1-1. It was disappointment. I got the first vote, so technically I should win. Right side of the bracket, South and Midwest. On the men's side, I'm going to ask you the exact same question. Biggest upset on that side of the bracket?
It's very shocking that I have went this directions both times. But I'm going to, and I am taking another 5-12. Give me James Madison upsetting Wisconsin.
That your biggest one?
That is my biggest one on this side.
So you are too boring to pick a 15 over a 2? We're not going to have back-to-back years of a 16 over a 1? Nah, me neither. I'm not there either. However, I am with you on James Madison defeating Wisconsin, but that is not the only 12 seed I have beating a 5 seed on this side. I am picking Gonzaga to lose their first game. They play on Thursday, I think, against McNeese State, who went 30-3. Gonzaga has had such a weird up and down year, and yes, they have made it to the Sweet 16 8 consecutive years, twice or double the amount of consecutive Sweet 16s than any other team that's in this tournament. But I think it comes to an end. Then McNeese will make it to the Sweet 16 because they're not going to beat Kansas because Kansas is going to lose to Samford. I have McNeese and Samford both winning in that quadrant for a couple of reasons. Again, we've already talked about it in the first hour. We haven't watched a lot of college basketball. I have watched a couple of, the experts chatting and talking about different stuff, and you pick up some things. Their big thing is 2 of the best players for Kansas. They might be back for the tournament, but they're not going to be 100%. And I think that is exactly a big deal when you come to March Madness is who's dealing with injuries, who's coming in hot out of these lower seeds who are really good shooters, who have those sneaky defenses that can keep you in games and come away with a big upset. Samford and McNeese are going to meet up in the second round down there in Salt Lake City. Those are my big upsets.
So I had to stay with Gonzaga just because Denise's family is close to McNeese out of Lake Charles, Louisiana. I couldn't pull the trigger for McNeese over that. So I'm going Gonzaga. And I don't know enough about Samford, but we always know that Kansas is ready to play. I think they've got to have a deeper bench. That's why I'm going that way. As far as your 116 or your 215s, we're talking about Tennessee, who's played unbelievable all year, taking on a 13-loss team in St. Peter's.
Hey, do you know the nickname of St. Peter's?
I do not, but I bet you it's on your bad brackets.
They are the St. Peter's Peacocks. And yes, they are on bad brackets. Go check that out. Funniest NCAA team nicknames. St. Peter's did make the list. I do ask because there's a number 1 seed on this side of the bracket, Purdue. Do you remember what happened to Purdue last year?
I don't remember offhand.
They were
almost printed off the bracket from last year where it had it all showing.
Then you would have remembered that Purdue lost to Fairleigh Dickinson last year in the second ever 16 over a 1 in an opening round matchup. Who knows who they're going to play, Grambling or Montana State? Though I think that game just ended.
I would say that was a
It's
game
going on
tonight.
right now. It's Wagner and Howard today. Wagner defeated Howard, so they will get North Carolina. It's the Grambling Montana State game tomorrow, along with Colorado Boise State, which, as far as our local area stuff, is interesting at least.
Yeah, and
Also going on right now, it is half what?
I just
It's
looked at it too.
halftime between Colorado State and Virginia has 14 points. It's 27-14 at halftime. Virginia has shot 5 of 29 from the field.
Yeah. I took Purdue, and I have Purdue in my final 8.
Okay, let's
And
get
so
right into it.
out of the Midwest,
Give me your Elite 8 in the South and Midwest.
the South and Midwest, I'm going to stay in the Midwest right now. I'm taking Purdue and Tennessee.
Okay.
And in the South, I'm going to take Kentucky, but they just barely squeezed by Marquette to face Houston. So
Okay.
I think Houston is the most dominant team on this side of the bracket.
We have 3 of the 4 the same. I have Houston versus Kentucky, and I have Purdue versus Creighton. I have Creighton beating Tennessee. Who do you have in the final 4? Let's just go right into the rest of your bracket.
All right. So for the East-West side, I've got UConn taking on NC winning that one. And then on the South side, I'm taking Houston over Tennessee in a close game in the final 4 game.
Okay, and who wins?
I'm taking North Carolina. I think North Carolina is just too much, and they're going to come away with the win over Houston.
So North Carolina is your champion. My final 4 is Iowa State, Arizona, Houston, and Purdue. I have Arizona beating Iowa State. I have Purdue pulling off what would seem like an upset against Houston. And because history likes to repeat itself, the first ever 1 seed to lose to a 16 seed. Do you remember that one? It was Virginia, who's shooting like complete garbage right now. Virginia lost to UMBC. It's the first ever time a 16 seed beat a 1 seed. The very next season, Virginia won the whole tournament. So I am saying history repeats itself. Purdue lost to Fairleigh Dickinson last year, and I will have the Boilermakers win the whole tournament this year. With that said, they're going to lose to Montana State in the opening round. That'd be great. All right, on the women's side. On the left side of let's just do the top, because the way the women do it, they go to 2 sites, and they why can't we still say east, west, north, whatever? Give me your Albany final 4 teams. So the teams that would make it into the Elite 8 be the final match, the regional finals, if you will, in Albany 1 and Albany 2.
So for me, I have South Carolina. So you want the 8 or you want 4?
8.
All right. So I'm going to go South Carolina getting there. I'm hoping Oregon State is in that other side. So I'm going to go Oregon State, South Carolina on that side. Listen, you'll find out in a little while I take this, but I'm going to go Iowa in the on the other side, and give me. I think it's another thing that they've got to prove it. Give me UCLA.
That's fair.
UCLA.
So we're half and half. I have South Carolina, of course. I do have Notre Dame beating Oregon State in that matchup. So South Carolina, Notre Dame. I also have Iowa in their matchup, but I had LSU just beat out UCLA. So that is where I have there. I have South Carolina and Iowa both moving on. Do you have the same? Okay. How about the bottom half of the women's bracket down in Portland? Who do you got in those matchups?
For me, I think Gonzaga can make it interesting. I think it's going to be Texas and Gonzaga, and that one in their matchup. It's hard to say. I would love to see an upset of Chattanooga upsetting NC State, a 14 over
How
a
far
3.
back are we going? We're not doing the whole bracket.
I want that to be the upset. I think
Gotcha.
Chattanooga and Stanford on that side. Portland number
You've gone
3.
too far. I need the next group.
Well, yeah, I'm going over to Portland 3 now.
But you've given me what? Chattanooga and Stanford are in the same grouping.
That was into the final. Oh, I went one farm back. Sorry.
Yeah, you went to the Sweet 16.
I did.
You have me so confused.
Well, it doesn't take very much anymore,
no,
right?
Absolutely not. 100%. That is the most accurate statement you've ever said on this show.
I think Stanford is enough that they're going to pull it out in this one. I think they knock off Chattanooga. So give me Stanford and Texas. Stanford and Texas.
You couldn't do it?
I know. I want to go Gonzaga, but
I did. I went Gonzaga and Stanford myself, but I do have Stanford in the Final Four.
Yeah. And on the other side, I think it is going to be South. I can't even spit it out. Southern California. Holy Moses.
You can just say USC. It's fine.
And I'm going to go Duke. I think Duke gets through and gets to that one.
Wow, a 7 seed would be fun.
Yeah.
For me, USC and UConn will be my regional final there. I have UConn in the finals. So South Carolina, Stanford, Iowa, UConn. We'll go South Carolina and Iowa in the finals. And yes, Caitlin Clark is fantastic, but South Carolina is just ridiculous, and they have been for years. So give me the Gamecocks of South Carolina.
I think it boils down to South Carolina and Iowa. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon. Give me the juice. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I want Iowa to win this one for Caitlin Clark.
That would be very, very cool. That will lead us into the sports-related draft. So if you're listening live, get ready to vote on who you think is going to win. It was Mr. Robert Hagen's turn to go ahead and pick the topic this week.
Yeah, so this week, with it being the start of March Madness, we had to go with the best college basketball player. And there's some huge names, some big names have been thrown around a lot this season. I think that's more of what I'm hearing than game scores. And so I thought it would be pretty cool to figure out who was the best basketball player. I picked the topic. Randy, you have the first pick.
Well, the number one, sometimes you have these drafts and you're scared to come up with a topic because the number one pick is very obvious. I do feel this is one of those cases. I don't know if you agree with me or not. We'll find out when you get to your pick. But the moment you sent me this topic, I didn't even have to look up anything. The correct answer is Lou Alcindor. For those that only watch the NBA, that's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. This is before he changed his name. But the man averaged 26 points a game, 15 rebounds a game. How about 3-time NCAA champion, 3-time NCAA Final Four most outstanding player. He was the 2-time AP Player of the Year. He won the Naismith Player of the Year as well. 3-time consensus All-Team All-American. The dude was the GOAT when it came to college basketball. They changed rules because of him.
Mm-hmm.
He was fantastic as a pro as well, but we're just focusing on college itself. So Lou Alcindor, the no-brainer number one pick in my eyes.
Yeah, it's a great pick because he was one. It was 1-2 for me with these two, and I'm going to go with the name that's been thrown out so much over this last year and what he did, and I'm taking Pete Maravich. Pete played, and everybody complaining about what things are happening with not having the 3-point line, but it's like you said, a lot of things have transcended and changed over the many years, and what Lou Alcindor did at UCLA, unbelievable. But you look at what Pete did in 83 games, 3,600 points, 528 rebounds, 425 assists, while averaging 44 points a game. Unbelievable. 6 rebounds, 3-time SEC Player of the Year, 3-time All SEC, a Naismith Award winner, and the AP Player of the Year in the 69-70 season.
Yeah, I do think he was the clear-cut number 2, so I was not surprised not to have him fall to me. Then to me, it really came down to a couple of names, and it depends on which way you wanted to go with it. And then you play the game of who can I pick now, where the other one might fall. But it was also that situation where it's like, even if you picked the one person that I wanted to take, I had my backup ready to go. So I went with Bill Walton of UCLA, one of the weirder dudes in all of basketball. Obviously, for those, I mean, if you watched any Pac-12 games, he's was the color commentator for a lot of those, and some of his color commentary is just hilarious. Great 30 for 30 for him, but 20 points a game, 15 rebounds. Another one of those big men that just dominated college basketball back in the 70s, back when Robert was in college, I'm sure. Again, 2-time NCAA champion, 3-time National College Player of the Year, absolutely dominated everything. Went back, like I said, going back to back national championships. And in one of those championship games, he's put up 24 points and 25 rebounds in the championship. And then the next year, he made 21 of 22 shots, scored 44 points and 13 rebounds in the championship. So not only was he one of the best players, he was the one that came up in the biggest moments as well. So Bill Walton's my second pick.
Yeah, fair enough. But I'm gonna go with a individual that is still an active player. Give me Caitlin Clark. Yes, she's active. She's still playing. These numbers are going to continue to grow. Hopefully, she has a huge tournament. But what she has done in her career at Iowa, 133 games, 3,700 points through today with stats. As we're getting ready to start the tournament, those numbers are going to grow. 944 rebounds. 900, almost 1,000 rebounds for her in her career, over almost 1,100 assists. So not only just scoring the ball, she was able to kick it out and pass things around, averaging almost 9 assists a game, nearly 29 points per game. AP Player of the Year, 3-time All-American, Naismith Award winner, Wooden American, Big Ten Player of the Year, also Big Ten Rookie of the Year in the 2021 season. I think this young lady is going to have a huge WNBA career when she gets drafted, and I'm excited to see. That's why I took Iowa. I'm excited to see what she can do in the playoffs this year.
So my question to you, if I would have went Caitlin Clark with my second pick, which I almost did, I was between her and Walton. Would you have taken Walton with your second pick, or did I flip them incorrectly?
No, I wouldn't have taken Walton.
Nah, then I should have went Clark, and then I could have went Walton third. But that's all right. I still like my group. My third one, and yes, if we just go by stats, we'll probably end up having somebody vote against me. That's totally fine. When I was growing up, this was the college athlete, right? Not only for what he was able to do on the floor, but just he started the hatred for Duke basketball. Like, you hated Duke basketball. You either loved or hated Duke basketball, I should say, partially because of Christian Laettner. One of my favorite 30 for 30s is on Christian Laettner as well. Just one of those wild personalities in the late 80s, early 90s. This was when Duke was able to win back-to-back championships. There's a reason that the 1992 Dream Team, which is the greatest collection of basketball players ever assembled, brought in one college athlete, because this was the first year pros were allowed in. They brought in one college athlete, and they picked Christian Laettner over Shaquille O'Neal, because that dude was insane as far as the college level. A lot of people don't give him the credit, because once he got to the pros, he was just another guy. He had a decent career, but he didn't do what Bill Walton and he didn't do what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did, or somebody that you're going to mention here with your third pick, or Michael Jordan, or just go through the list of those that did a great job at college and then were even better pros. Christian Laettner peaked in his college athletic days. Yeah, just 16 points a game, about 8 rebounds a game. So again, the stats don't jump out to you, but what does jump out to you is his tournament performances. We all know about the shot. I think one of the most iconic college basketball shots of all time that he was able to do against Kentucky, and I believe it was the Elite Eight in overtime. Of that one, they go on and win the championship there. People don't remember that he was a perfect 10 for 10 from the field there, and he kept them in that contest. But the things that always stand out to me, other than the crazy stories you hear of just the fans wanting to murder this guy every time he took the floor and the stuff he had to deal with, was the fact that through all of it, through all of these like increases in points scored in basketball, we talk about how they play less and less defense, even at the college level. Christian Laettner has the most points ever, all time in a career in the March Madness tournament with 407, and in his career, he could have played a possible 200 or 24 games. He played in 23, 2 championships, and then 1 Final Four appearance. Christian Laettner, underrated as a college basketball player.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head is what he did past that. But he was, he was known as kind of that bad boy guy. And for me, it was the combination of him and Bobby Hurley together and what those two did on the floor. And
And
so
then you had poor Grant Hill, who was the sweetest human being of all time, surrounded by those two.
Yeah, and I had totally spaced out that he was the only college guy on that 90, and I still think that is the best, hands down, Olympic team ever play.
He is also the only player on that dream team not to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
because his NBA career was not great.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think about. So when I thought about that, when I saw you put Christian Laettner, I'm like, okay, I knew there had to be a backup of why he went there, and because I had that persona knocked in my head of he was that bad boy, he was that, and I'm like, did he put up the number? Yes, we all know the shot, but fair enough. I mean, what he did, for me, it has to be a guy and that come and played at San Francisco in the old WCC, and when CBA was there, and that is Bill Russell. I mean, Bill Russell put up crazy numbers in his 3 seasons that he played in San Francisco. 1,600 points. Now we think, okay, 1,600 points, but when you look at it the other way, you see 1,600 rebounds. So almost a 1-to-1 on point. For every point, you're going to get a rebound out of this guy. Average 20 points in a game, and 20 rebounds a game. He was a 2-time NCAA champion there with San Francisco. And then the numbers that are staggering for me looking at that, and when I looked at things, was in the 1954. No, and I wasn't around then. 1954, 55, 56 season, he was number 1 in pretty much every category that there was. Number 1 in points, number 1 in points per game, number 1 in total rebounds, number 1 in total rebounds a game. Free throw attempts, he was number 1 with that. Games played, he didn't miss games. He played in all 29 games. Free throws, true shooting. And that was all before, the outside shot, where the guys were taking outside shots. It was dump it in, let them put it up off the glass, good. And Bill came away with those big 2 championships. I mean, so there's days that I wish I would have watched these guys play, and I really wish I would have been able to see Lou Alcindor as a college player in the heyday. Same with Bill Russell. I wish I was around. Yes, we get the videotapes and the recordings, but there's something about visually seeing a guy for the first time, but some really big names that came out of this, and I was excited to see the names that we came up with.
Yeah. And honestly, the one thing that all 6 of these athletes have in common, multiple years at the same college where they could create, this history. And it's not just a one and done situation. Again, don't blame the athletes. We had this discussion already. I don't blame the athletes for using the system and getting their name out and going and getting yours. I mean, we'll never go against that. But the system is broken and it needs to be fixed. And I have a feeling when we look at the ratings for March Madness this year, it will be telling. Like I honestly don't, like, you and I, we talked about what's going on in our lives, why we're not into March Madness as much. I believe just from seeing what's around me that the ratings will show that it's not just us. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. So let us know, if you are watching live, who ends up winning this sports-related draft for the best college basketball player of all time. Once again, I went with Lou Alcindor, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, for those that don't know. Bill Walton and Christian Laettner. For Robert, he went Pete Maravich, Caitlin Clark, and Bill Russell. And Harry's here. Hopefully right in the time to go ahead and pick a winner. See, I was waiting. I tried to wait long enough for Harry to hop on, or somebody to hop on and then give us a vote. And Harry comes on right at the nick of time. While Harry thinks about it, again, Harry, best college basketball player of all time, I went Lou Alcindor. Oh, Randy 2-1. Robert wins this for me, so we tie again. Man, you two need to battle it out right now. Harry and Eric, battle it out. We need a winner. I'm not tying Robert back to back weeks. It's just not happening. But while you do that, I got to talk about what went down for LC Sports, because a lot went down as we will get into the tournaments right now. As yes, March Madness is getting underway. However, the big tournament.
Rock'em Sock'em. Oh, wait, you weren't around for Rock'em Sock'em.
Hold on.
Harry, yes, we were talking about this a little while ago. 14 points scored by Virginia at halftime.
Sound effect, and Robert just talked all over it.
Oh, I apologize.
Round 1. Fight!
There you go. Some Mortal Kombat for you. But the NAIA tournaments are going on right now in basketball. The men have made it to Kansas City, Missouri. I'll have a preview up. It'll probably post tomorrow. As the Warriors, it's an interesting thing. So LC was an 11 seed in their bracket. They were able to beat Hope International, and then they're able to beat the host seed, who is the number 8 ranked team in the country, Montana Tech. They won 93-77 and then 85-77. In doing so, the Warriors in the round of 16 get the 15th seed of their quadrant, Evangel of Missouri, though they are more of a home team there. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes on. But Austin Johnson and the crew will play their round of 16 game on Thursday at 5 p.m. and we'll hopefully see them a bit farther on. Lewiston hosted the opening, or the first 2 rounds, are one of the 8 sites. Warriors had a ridiculous second half against Bruton Parker, won that one 85-56 when they outscored the Barons 25-4 in the third quarter. This was a 1-point game at halftime before LC went bonkers. But then they ran into Jamestown. Great back and forth game. Jamestown had a really strong second quarter, got up by double digits. LC had another really good third quarter, got the lead to within 1, but just could never get over that hump and take the lead. Several shots there at the end. Warriors were trailing by 3. They got 3 decent looks from beyond the arc on the final possession, including Callie Stevens, who did a fantastic job of creating the space to get the last shot off. Unfortunately, it does rim out. So the season for the Warrior women have come to an end, and that was a very emotional day because Callie Stevens, one of the interns for our friend and my boss Alicia, so they had a moment after that game, and it was tough to see her career come down to the wire where she was just unable to get that last shot to fall. It's just it's sport sometimes, but you just hate to see it. LC Baseball was able to win 3-4 on the road. They are now at home this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, against Eastern Oregon. Doubleheader on Saturday starts at noon, and then doubleheader on Sunday is at 11. Because of men's basketball being in Kansas City, Brian Danner for KOZE is currently headed out there right now. So if you're going to listen to Warrior Baseball on the radio, you're stuck with my voice for 4 games. Sorry about that.
And I, while the show is going on, and I know Alicia knows we record, weather is not being very kind here in the LC Valley this weekend, so things might switch things up. So stay tuned to our show, because right now it's looking like it might be a doubleheader on Friday and single games on Saturday and Sunday.
Well, honestly, if that's the case, then nobody's doing radio on Friday because I work. So stepped on my cord. Hold on.
So I will keep you posted with that as like I said during the show here. Alicia has emailed a lot of us workers of what's going on, so things might be a little bit different, but we'll post that on the R&R Sports Report.
I agree. We'll keep up to date. And also congratulations to Bryden Brown of the men's golf team. Bryden Brown back-to-back tournaments where he took the individual title in a playoff. He had birdies on 4 of the holes, also an eagle as he went 2 under on the day. Bryden Brown finished, I want to say, 5 under on the tournament. And the men were able to win collectively by 7 strokes. So congratulations to them as well. All right, we got through all that stuff. Harry and Eric, now that you're here, I need your Final Fours and your champion. I know you guys sent me your links for your ESPN group that I need to put my stuff in. While they do that, Aussie Rules Football had their first week. And I'll let you talk as your team won.
Yes, my team won. I have not watched the highlights yet, other than I know they came away with a win in that one. A few other ones. Sydney knocked off Collingwood 102-69. Sorry, sir. Essendon Falls defeats Hawthorn 107-83.
How do you feel? Sorry. The team sucks.
They're going to turn it around eventually. I was hoping, sooner than later. GWS defeats Harry's North Melbourne Roos 121-82. Gold Coast knocks off Adelaide 60-54, and Port Adelaide defeats West Coast 120-70. So that's going to set up a great week 2. Adelaide is going to take on Geelong on Friday. That is a game that is going to be on FS2. Make sure you set your DVR 1:40 Pacific time for that one. So make sure you rate it. And we look also North Melbourne. Harry's team will be taking on Fremantle 7:45 on Friday, and your Hawthorn Hawks take on Melbourne 10:35 on that game. And then on Saturday, Western will take on Gold Coast 7 p.m. And the other game that is on FS2 this week, only 2 games this week, Richmond will take on Port Adelaide also. And a nice time to watch that one, 10 p.m. Pacific time on that game.
Yeah, we'll see how things go. Some pretty good stuff. I know you talked about it, but I can't think of the guy that scored the final goal for your Geelong Cats in their win against St. Kilda. But what a fantastic ending that one was, where St. Kilda looked like they could come back and pull off the upset, and just a ridiculous goal from about 48 meters out that looked like it was going to miss to the left. It just drifted back in just in the nick of time. It was a really fun ending to that game. So congratulations to your Cats. Again, hopefully one of these years, that my Hawks will be back to being decent enough where we can have a good competition, but it just has not been the case. All right. One more thing. As NASCAR was at Bristol, they finally got rid of the dirt and they replaced it with, they went to pavement. They made it look like Dover. And unfortunately, I don't think they did enough testing on Bristol with this new track, because the tires just ate each other up.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Kyle Busch, I think, blew 7 tires in the first half of this race, and then everyone started going much slower in the second half of the race, and it was a weird event. NASCAR had to kind of get a little bit more lax with their caution flags, because they knew if they threw the caution flag, then everyone was going to come down and get tires. Each team is only allotted so many tires per race. NASCAR gave every team one extra set of tires for the race, and it was not going to be enough if they kept having the caution flags. And it wasn't like they're like, all right, we'll give you more. That's all they had in Bristol, Tennessee. So it became really interesting to see what was going to happen in that race. Caution flags took twice as long because NASCAR at that point just went, we're just going to try to burn laps. So while I wasn't a big fan of dirt on Bristol, making it like Dover was not the answer either.
No, and they were talking about all the resin, and you could see how much that those guys were fishtailing around, coming and just barely nicking anybody. But you look at a few of those guys and how shredded the tires became. There was so many driving on wheels that it was nuts to watch this happen. And so, and to cause the issues that did, it's like they said, it came down to just 5 guys left on the lead lap, and it was a crazy amount of tire issues causing these guys to not have the race that I think it could have been.
Yeah, and it was interesting that it was the middle of the tires too. It wasn't like it was burning on one side of them. It was just the middle of the tire getting completely beat up. It was an interesting race. We'll see how they adjust from that. Denny Hamlin survived. We'll just say that. It was some good racing in that first stage before the tires imploded. A ton of passes were getting made, a ton of lead changes. The racing was the best it had been. The tires just couldn't stand it.
Yeah. Ty Gibbs comes away with both of the stage wins, but how about more of how much Denny Hamlin got booed getting
That's
out
him
of
every
it?
time.
I mean,
he's
it
now
just
that guy.
sounded, it just sounded more and more as soon as you see his head crest out of the car, the boo birds were falling there at Bristol.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. They go to the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas next week. So we will see how that goes. But that is going to just about do it here on the 175th edition of the R&R Sports Report. Again, next week, we will break down the American League East. So, Eric, be ready to talk about your Tampa Bay Rays. We will also give you all of our division winners, our wild card recipients, who will make the World Series, who's going to win the whole thing, which team is Robert going to say will be the World Series champion that'll end up being dead last in our division. You have to turn out next Tuesday to find out. Love to see it. We will also look at how March Madness has gone through the first 2 rounds so far. Of course, update you on the LC Warrior men, see if they have been able to continue their journey as far as their tournament goes. Hopefully the weather will be nice enough where I get to call the baseball games as planned, but that's not looking likely. So that stinks. We will break down the 2 games. Well, we'll talk. We won't break them down. We'll mention the 2 games that happened in Korea that are getting ready to start here in 7 hours or so between the Dodgers and the Padres, and get all hyped up for the start of the baseball season. Don't forget to go check out Bad Brackets, as this week it was the funniest NCAA nicknames. Some of those nicknames you will find on your brackets themselves. Any last word over there, Hagen?
No, just I hope everybody is ready for the start of Major League Baseball. I'm so ready to start watching some games. The baseball fever is finally kicked. I was excited. This will be the first weekend of working baseball at LC, so it's time to watch some college game and be outside. I mean, gorgeous day outside today, and then now all of a sudden weather's going to turn on us up here, so it's going to be interesting.
Making me grumpy. Why can't we do something different? Absolutely a complete mess. But that will do it for this week's episode of the R&R Sports Report. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. I'm not sure where are they on ESPN?
I know the first one is. I have not looked at the second one. I know that
my guess, if they are broadcasting the first game, they're not going to only go over to Korea to broadcast one. That would be my guess. Now I'm trying to look.
Yes, it will. Both of them will be on ESPN. Both of them 3:05 a.m. Pacific time. So
there you go. All right. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We will see you next week right here on the R&R Sports Report. But until then, that's Robert. I'm Randy, and we are